Today, we are examining a major claim circulating among Iraqi Dinar followers. The claim suggests that a long-planned global monetary reset has already begun with Iraq, that sanctions have been removed, that international standard digital banking systems are fully operational, that United Nations and United States oversight has officially ended, and that recovered assets from anti-corruption operations could provide leverage for a major revaluation of the Iraqi dinar. The same narrative goes further, suggesting that Vietnam and Zimbabwe could follow Iraq under resource-backed monetary frameworks. These are significant statements, but before interpreting what they could mean for the Iraqi dinar, it is essential to separate verified economic developments from speculation. The information provided for this report comes from a commentary attributed to guest guru Judy Byington. The claims in that commentary should not automatically be treated as official announcements from the Central Bank of Iraq, the Iraqi government, the International Monetary Fund, the United Nations, or the United States government. At the time of this report, there is no basis here to describe a specific global currency reset or a guaranteed Iraqi dinar revaluation as an established fact. That distinction is extremely important for anyone following the dinar, because currency markets respond to policy decisions, monetary conditions, fiscal developments, banking reforms, foreign exchange management, and investor confidence. A dramatic statement on social media or in an online commentary does not itself change the official exchange rate. Now, there is an important part of the discussion that deserves serious attention. Iraq has been working for years to modernize its financial and banking system. Iraq's authorities have pursued banking sector reforms, stronger compliance procedures, greater integration with international financial standards, and improved electronic payment infrastructure. These developments matter because a modern banking system is an essential foundation for a stronger and more internationally connected economy. But banking modernization should not automatically be interpreted as evidence that a currency revaluation is about to occur. These are two different processes. A country can improve its banking infrastructure without changing its official exchange rate regime. In fact, strengthening the banking system can be necessary precisely because policymakers want monetary stability, better financial supervision, greater transparency, and more efficient transactions. The claim about sanctions also requires careful interpretation. Iraq has experienced major changes in its international financial and political position since the post-2003 period, and many historical restrictions are no longer comparable to the situation Iraq faces today. However, saying that all sanctions or restrictions that somehow kept the Iraqi dinar down for decades have simply disappeared is an oversimplification. Iraq's exchange rate policy is influenced by domestic monetary policy, fiscal conditions, foreign currency demand, oil revenues, banking sector conditions, and broader economic circumstances. The Central Bank of Iraq remains the key institution when it comes to official monetary and exchange rate policy. Therefore, if there were going to be a formal change in the dinar's official value, the most important evidence would come through an official CBI decision, a government policy announcement, or another clearly documented institutional action. That is the standard investors and analysts should use rather than relying on an unverified reset narrative. Another major part of the claim concerns digital banking. Iraq has indeed been moving toward greater electronic payments and financial modernization. Electronic payment systems can reduce reliance on cash, improve transaction records, increase transparency, and make it easier for banks to connect with modern financial networks. These reforms can also help authorities combat money laundering and improve financial compliance. For Iraqi dinar followers, this is potentially significant over the long term. A healthier banking sector can increase public confidence in domestic banks. If more households and businesses begin using formal banking channels, the financial system can potentially become more efficient and transparent. But again, stronger digital banking does not mathematically create a new exchange rate. It creates infrastructure that can support a more sophisticated economy. The discussion about anti-corruption operations and recovered assets also needs to be viewed carefully. Recovering stolen public funds is economically beneficial because it can improve fiscal resources and strengthen institutional confidence. If assets are recovered and legally returned to the state, those resources can potentially support government finances, investment, public services, or debt management, depending on how policymakers use them. However, recovered assets should not automatically be described as revaluation leverage. A currency's official value is not normally determined simply by adding recovered assets to government accounts. Exchange rate policy involves much broader considerations, including money supply, inflation, reserves, fiscal policy, external balances, market demand, and the central bank's objectives. This is where the difference between an economic reform story and a currency reset story becomes particularly important. An economic reform story can be supported by measurable developments. Banking reforms, payment system upgrades, improvements in compliance, stronger financial supervision, investment reforms, changes in fiscal policy, and increased integration with international markets. A currency reset story requires something much more specific, an official decision to change the exchange rate framework or the value at which the currency is exchanged. So, what could this mean for the Iraqi dinar in the short term? For now, followers should focus on official exchange rate information rather than assuming that a new rate has already been activated. A major revaluation would normally produce clear evidence across official financial channels. Banks, financial institutions, government agencies, and foreign exchange markets would need to respond to such a decision. A genuine change of that magnitude would not depend solely on an online announcement. In the medium and long term, however, Iraq's financial reforms remain important. If Iraq continues strengthening its banking system, improves electronic payments, increases financial transparency, attracts investment, maintains macroeconomic stability, and improves confidence in its institutions, the foundation for a stronger financial environment becomes more credible. That does not guarantee a specific dollar to dinar rate. It does, however, create conditions that could influence the country's economic performance and the effectiveness of monetary policy. The reference to Vietnam and Zimbabwe should also be approached carefully. Vietnam has its own monetary framework, economic structure, trade position, and currency management policy. Zimbabwe has a completely different monetary history and set of economic challenges. Saying that these countries are simply next in a predetermined global reset sequence is speculation unless supported by official policy documents. There is another point that Iraqi dinar followers should keep in mind. Currency value is not determined by national resources alone. Iraq has enormous oil resources and substantial economic potential, but natural resources do not automatically translate into a higher currency exchange rate. What matters is how effectively those resources generate sustainable government revenue, investment productivity, foreign exchange earnings, and economic stability. This is why serious currency analysis must look beyond a single number. Analysts should monitor Iraq's oil revenues, government spending, inflation, reserves, banking reforms, private sector development, foreign exchange demand, international financial relationships, and the central bank's monetary policy. If those indicators continue improving, Iraq could become financially stronger over time. That is a meaningful development in itself, even without an overnight revaluation. For viewers who follow the Iraqi dinar, the most responsible approach is therefore to remain interested but cautious. It is reasonable to monitor major reforms and ask whether they could eventually influence monetary policy. It is not reasonable to treat an unverified reset announcement as proof that a specific exchange rate has already been approved. The phrase "Iraq is turned on" may sound dramatic, but the real economic story is much more complex. Iraq's financial transformation, if it continues, will likely be measured through institutions, banking reforms, fiscal discipline, investment, payment systems, and confidence in the financial sector. Those are the developments that can ultimately create a more sustainable economic environment. And if an official exchange rate change ever does occur, the strongest signal will not be a rumor. It will be documentation from the relevant monetary authorities and observable changes in the financial system. So, at this stage, the reset narrative should be treated as a claim rather than confirmed monetary policy. There are genuine reforms taking place in Iraq's financial sector, and those reforms deserve attention. But there is a significant difference between modernization and an officially announced currency revaluation. For the Iraqi dinar community, that distinction can help separate meaningful economic progress from speculation. The long-term story of Iraq may indeed involve a stronger banking system, greater financial integration, improved transparency, and a more diversified economy. Whether those developments eventually lead to changes in the dinar's exchange rate framework is a separate question that only future policy decisions can answer. As always, watch the official statements, follow credible economic data, and avoid making financial decisions based solely on unverified currency reset claims. The Iraqi economy is evolving, but responsible analysis means allowing evidence to lead the story, rather than allowing predictions to become facts. Thank you for watching Iraqi Dinar News. If you want responsible, factual and balanced updates on the Iraqi dinar, Iraq's economy, banking reforms and monetary developments, make sure to subscribe to the channel and like this video. We will continue to follow the evidence and bring you the latest verified developments as they emerge. This content is provided for informational and educational purposes only and is not financial advice.